My first name is Scott. If you're a comic book fan, Scott Summers is an X-Man. So when they try to Google me, they always get Cyclops. So I decided to use S. Thomas Summers instead. My book, Private Hercules McGraw, is a little different. It tells the story, poem by poem, of a young Confederate soldier who joins the war for selfish reasons, and because of his experiences in the war, changes quite a bit. And I'd like to take you through his journey, just highlights here and there. One of the first poems, we find out why he joins the war, and it's called A Note Nailed to the Door. I'm off. Willie, Nate, and me decided it was time to kick in. Daddy, I got your gun. Figured I need it more than you if this feud begins to crackle. Only way I'll ever get Martha Lane to marry me is if I get a slave. And if what I'm hearing is right, that new president up in Washington is planning on making all them free. Probably the moment I got the money to purchase one that suits me, Lincoln will tell him he's a man. Might as well go tell Martha to go marry herself another. Mama, I know you say I'm a handsome sight, but really, I ain't no Prince Charming. If I can't be a pretty man, I need a slave to master. Only way you'll ever be a grandma, your son, Hercules. And he goes off to war. One of the first things that changes him is the first time that he kills someone. And he starts to look at the war very differently. And if I just get to page 27. This is called Not One Bit. And it takes place at the Battle of Shiloh. Once our guns started banging and my ears was choked with thunder, we got the order to charge. Guess the war wanted to see us bad. Right when I could spy some Yanks through the smoke and haze, their coats as dark as the wood they walked out of, my toes smacked up against the rock the size of my noggin, and I fell like a chopped tree. I lay there a moment, and hell spit and hollered above me. Men catching lead fell, their arms and legs bending in ways they weren't meant to. Some screamed for Jesus or their mothers. Others just screamed to scream. Instead of getting up, I took careful aim at a blue blood stepping quick in my direction. For a bit, everything slowed down, and I swear I seen my musket ball fly out my gun, cut through the air, and nestle in that Yank's belly. He tumbled down, grabbed his gut, started rolling this way and that. I got up, charged again, thinking, hell yeah, I got me one. Still, killing didn't spark the fire I thought it might. Nope, not one bit. As he continues on his journey, that killing begins to affect him greatly, and just the other hardships that he faces. And this poem is called Seasons. It's like a season passed in the blink of an afternoon. This morning I smiled at black-eyed Susies reaching above the grass and clover. Bees hum from bloom to bloom like politicians knocking on doors, mustering votes. Breeze carried scents of earth and honey, sweetest spring day that ever filled my lungs. Made me want to touch something soft, something special, maybe the hand of a Charleston beauty. But after a day of trading spit and smoke with a regiment of billies, this pretty spot done shed all its pretty. Blood has a queer smell, like a bog choked with sour fish. But it don't mud a patch of ground like water does. Blood turns dirt into syrup. Walk in it too long and you get all gummed up. And the dead are leaking blood all about. From here it looks like a herd of fellas decided to nap, but they ain't waking up no time soon. You can see their last thought carved on each of their faces. It's never fear or anger. Mostly it seems like sorrow to me, like they know they just lost memory and hope all at once. Don't seem like spring no more. What season is it? It's a season for breathing, at least while you still can. As he continues, he runs out of his regiment and joins another regiment. You're not supposed to do that. He kind of snuck into another one. that's going north because he knows Lincoln's north and he wants to talk to Lincoln. And he ends up in Gettysburg. And I'm going to read you two parts of a poem called Picketts Charge. And it's just his experience in that charge. It wasn't a very successful charge. At this point in the book, one of his friends has already died. Picketts Charge. Seemed like each time I placed one foot in front of the next, Yankee artillery charged against the dirt I stepped on, sending plumes of earth so high, I'm sure heaven's floorboards were sullied. Air was heavy with grime and smoke, made breathing harder than whistling underwater. Soon I was stepping over lumps of men, pieces big and small. Someone's ear slopped against my chest, hung there like a sticky fish. And the final part of that same poem. Willie and me never got near that Billy line. He stepped into a hole, got stumbled up. As I reached out to help him, I seen his head start to burst like a strawberry thrown against a stone wall, except it happened real slow-like. His head cracked here and there, and the cracks stretched across his face, jagged as lightning snaps. But he kept his eyes right on me. Cracks got deeper, wider. Skull started separating into pieces, islands floating on a map. But like I said, his eyes seemed to fix right on me until they leaked all their sight, and Willie slumped down like a pile of wet rope. Willie's dead, I thought. Good for him. Yup, good for him. And at this point, he decides, I've had enough war. I don't need a slave. I'm going home. And he just decides to go back to Tennessee. But on his journey back, he runs into the middle of a battle between, obviously, a northern regiment and a southern regiment, and he climbs a tree to not get caught. And this is what he sees from that tree. So let me get to the right page. This is called Shards of Night. Them feds started pouring through the wood like a river that run its banks. My heart started thunking wilder than a cat's heart after that cat scampered up a tree because a dog done breathed on its tail. And sure enough, I was up a tree. But hell, my jaw almost clanked the ground when I seen that flood a mite closer. I was perched atop a whole cluster of black Yankees. Damn, I says, Abe sent them damn slaves to fight. I first guessed they'd be whooping and shucking like a gaggle of monkeys. But they clutched their guns like soldiers, and their faces were all chiseled from stone, solid as Zion. Our boys started popping muskets first, and a few of them darkies fell. But the others paid no mind to that. They ran straight at those pickets like shards of night, screaming hell and spitting lead. I seen one take 3 bullets before he toppled. Each time blood puffed from his belly like a red cloud at sunset. And the one swinging the flag made certain them stripes never scraped the ground. I swear, them slaves be men. By God, they be men. And then he climbs down. That poem gets me a little emotional every time I read it. He climbs down, and his purpose is to talk to a black man, but for the first time, as a human being, not as a slave, not as a possession. He wants to talk to a man. And this is called Damn Good Day. Felt like I could have jumped out of that tree and floated down to earth soft as a goose feather. But I climbed down just the same. You could smell the stink of gunfire twisted with whiffs of drying blood and broken bone. I stepped between the trees, over a Confederate body or two, paying no mind to what was dying or what was dead. You see, I was looking for a breathing darky. Found one soon enough. He was stretched out flat, but his chest was heaving faster than the lungs of an angry bear. He weren't angry, though. God was just trying to tug his soul out of him. He was shot in the belly. Blood dark as mud was soaking his blues. I stood over him for a bit. He looked at me with eyes white as cotton, probably wondered if I was going to spit or piss on him. Instead, I knelt down close. took his hand in mine, squeezed it like I was squeezing my own brother's hand. "You're going to be looking at Jesus soon," I says. He says, "When we get ourselves to glory, you and me will have a talk. I got a lot to tell you." He wrapped his fingers tight around mine and smiled. "You might think of taking a bath first," he said. "You stink a mite." I smiled back and watched him die. It was a damn good day. And then finally he gets home, a changed man, but he still has to deal with his father and his family's racism. And this is called What Daddy Said. It's the final poem of the book. Jesus walked me home from then on. I stitched myself to his side like a pup does to its master. Pap said I looked a bit gritty, but he was glad to see me anyways. Ma just wrapped her arms around me tight like bark around a tree. She said she'd send for Martha, but I said not to. Ain't no part of me that pined for her no more. I told what Willie and Nate had done. They had got torn up, now dead as stone. I fell back into the farm, mended fences, slopped pigs, milked old Lucy, walked at night. It was a good time to cry. Willie and Nate cried with me. We laughed too. One time after walking, I heard a little voice out near the chickens. Nabbed me a mite black boy snatching eggs. Had him by the arm. His eyes welled up with fear that almost made me shiver. I took off his hat, told him to fill it with eggs and to get on. He wanted to smile, but didn't. He just run off, his skin dark as night. Daddy told me no slave deserved no eggs. Thank you.